Hello, and welcome to Day of Security, October 2021. I am so excited to be here once again supporting women in security. I am honored to be able to host this booth and talk to you today about your personal leadership journey. Your journey about where you are today and where you want to be in the many tomorrows to come. There's a workbook attached to the booth that you can download, and I encourage you to print it off and start writing. If you don't have it, that's fine. Just grab a piece of paper and start taking some notes. We're going to start drafting your leadership journey, from leadership story to leadership legacy. Today I want to help you define your story, define success for you, define your legacy, and then you will work to close the gaps and leave your legacy. I know you have spoken to mentors, leaders, and other individuals who have influenced you throughout your life, and they've told you stories, how they launched their careers, possibly the difficulties and challenges that many of them may have ran into as they were trying to get their careers off the ground. Many of them talk to you about the hard work and dedication and determination that it takes in order for you to get to the career that you want to get to. I want you to think about these stories and those experiences that those leaders have had throughout their careers. But right now what I want to do is I want to tell you just a little bit about my story. I grew up in a small West Texas farming town, the daughter of a cotton farmer and a bank teller. There were two types of people in this town, those who would stay there forever and those that wanted to get the hell out of Dodge. I wanted to get the hell out of Dodge. I wanted so many more experiences, and I wanted a college education. My parents thought a college education was a waste of time, and especially a waste of money. But when I graduated from high school, I loaded up my car, I moved to Dallas, and I got a job. I started taking some classes. I lived in an apartment by myself, and the bills started adding up. So I got a second job. And then, life happened. It wasn't all working out. I had two jobs and classes, and I couldn't do it all. I hit the pause button on my education, and I started looking for a better job. I found a great opportunity working for Marriott Riverwalk in downtown San Antonio. I started driving my career, and I found some success through hard work and determination. And during my time at Marriott, I married my husband, Rod, of 28 years, just this month, and we spent several years moving around the country following his career. I continued to work hard and found success in HR and learning in tech and cyber companies, and I was checking some boxes. But there was something still missing. So Rod supported me through his confidence and positive encouragement. And when I talked about my goals and my dreams, he would often ask me, "So what's stopping you?" Not long after we relocated for Rod to start a new job with a new company, we were having one of those conversations again. Okay, what's the next chapter for me? One of those life discussions. And I brought up the fact that I wished I had finished college. And again, Rod asked me, "What's stopping you?" Well, I didn't have a very good answer this time. So I enrolled. I spent the next 7 years working full-time, traveling for work, taking classes, and following our son around Texas playing baseball and football, often with books in hand. At 48 years old, I achieved my goal. I now had my bachelor's and my master's. Then in 2016, when I said I wanted to start my own business, what did Rod say? Well, the first thing he said was, "Go sell crazy somewhere else." And then, of course he said, "What's stopping you?" Now I know you're here today because you have goals and aspirations. You want to either expand expand your career in cybersecurity, or you want to launch into a career in cybersecurity. So I want to help you start outlining those goals and aspirations in your workbook. This workbook is your story. This workbook is a way for you to establish your goals and define your legacy. You'll see several pages in the beginning with questions that will help you write your story. These are thought starters about your family, your upbringing, your schooling, accomplishments, challenges, turning points, mentors, role models, all the different things that helped you create your story and define your legacy. These stories are what shaped you. They're what made you who you are today. Some of these pages will take deep thought, and some of them will come really easy. Others may be left completely blank. That's okay. This is your story. You wrote it. Own it. Learn from it, but don't let the past define the next chapters. Take this opportunity to write down where you want to go. And I would love for you to continue to share, even in the chat here, anything that comes to mind about your story. But definitely share with others just your initial thoughts, some answers to those questions. Now I want you to pause for just a minute, and I want you to think about something. I want you to think about commonalities in the stories that you have heard. My story today, or all the many stories from mentors, role models, and other experienced leaders. We've all had turning points. We've all navigated challenges and obstacles. There have been setbacks, and there have been peaks and valleys. There have been successes. Kent Taylor, founder of Texas Roadhouse, says in his book, Made from Scratch, "I've never met a successful person who hasn't overcome personal hurdle or tragedy." Now, my story that I told earlier didn't include many setbacks, but I did have a few. When I was trying to launch my business in 2017, we lost our daughter to a tragic car accident. In 2018, I lost my daddy only 3 weeks after being diagnosed with lung cancer. 2019 and 2020, everybody knows what happened those years. My business was shut down. What kept me going? My goals, my dreams, my aspirations. Now, having those written down, having my goals and my legacy outlined made it so much easier for me to stay focused, to pull myself back together, and to get on track to accomplishing the goals that are important to me. I had a friend of mine once share that her success was to be the CEO of me. So she said everybody should write their goals down and be the CEO of me, of themselves. So writing these goals down, making it very clear to yourself and to others what is important to you, your goals, your dreams, and aspirations. Those are one of the many reasons that this work is so important. Now, as we move on to the next part of the workbook, I want you to talk about success and what success looks like for you. And that can be found on page 15. And so I want you to think about that. What does leadership success look like to you? Write it down. What does it look like to you? If you want to drop it in the chat, drop it in the chat. Leadership success for me looks like, write it out. Google says successful leaders are defined by the behaviors they exhibit as they lead. I had another leader tell me that her leadership success or her style was 3 simple words: be fair, be firm, be consistent. That's what her Northern Star was. That's where she guided herself. That's what kept her on track. Executive coach, author, and speaker Marshall Goldsmith says success is achieving his mission. His mission is simple, helping people get even better. So neither one of those are complicated. They're both very simple. Don't make this hard, but make it yours. In general, success is actually defined by the person who wants to achieve it. Success could be being the best of the best in your current role, or becoming a cybersecurity specialist in the cloud, administration, threat intelligence, data loss prevention, data security, or the leader in any of those roles. The list could go on and on. It's endless. CyberSN says there's 45 job categories, so there's a lot out there. It could be exactly what you're doing today, or it could be totally different. There could be things in your personal life that you would add when you think about leadership success. Your family, your kids, your house, where you want to live, all of those different things, the kind of car you want to drive. If those things are important for you, make sure you write those down as your leadership success. I also want you to make sure that you think about the successful things that you do day in and day out. All of the small wins, all of the things that you are already doing that make you successful. So as we continue working on crafting your personal leadership journey, I want you to define what success looks like to you. This is your point of view, your mental models, your values. It's the lens in which you see the world. We often see success in others. We aspire to have that success. However, we often don't see ourselves in that same light, not through that same lens. So I want to take you through an exercise to define leadership success for you. When designing your life, inspiration takes the form of other people. In the workbook, we call them heroes, and they could be real or fictional, but they're people we know personally or know of that we see as successful leaders. So in your workbook on page 16, I want you to write your hero's name at the top of that page. Think about that person or people that you've worked with, or people in your community, mentors, great partners or leaders or role models, someone that inspired you, all of the things that they do that make them great leaders. List down on those lines the qualities, the characteristics, the behaviors that you believe makes them a successful leader, or you value about their leadership. Now I want you to take some time now, just a few minutes, to initially capture your thoughts. Continue writing those qualities. These heroes, these leaders that inspire us actually tell us something about our values, our beliefs, and the kind of life we aspire to live. Many of the things in our lives can change, but our values are pretty constant. They're the foundation of our life's design. I want you to list those qualities out and share those qualities with others. But now here's what I want you to do. I want you to go back up to the top of the page, back up to that box where you wrote that hero's name, where you wrote that leader's name. And I want you to take your pen and cross out that name. Cross it out. Just a line through it. You don't have to scribble it. And now I want you to write your name just above it. Full name. Write it above where you scratched out that leader's name. Now look at that list. How many items on that list do you share? How many things are you missing? Does the list describe you? Now make sure you give yourself enough credit. This list of qualities, characteristics, and behaviors that you value, to the degree possible, be this leader, be this manager, be this person. Live and lead just like this list, and you will be more successful. Now, we've drafted some of your story. We've defined what leadership success looks like to you. So let's move on to the next phase of our leadership journey. What's the legacy that you want to have? Think about it. What is a leadership legacy? How would you define that or describe it? Jot that down in your workbook. What is a leadership legacy? Now, balanced leadership is very tangible results and behaviors. The art of leadership is how you make people feel. And this art is ultimately your legacy that you'll leave. That's the core of your legacy, is this art of leadership, those behaviors. Because people will remember the results that you delivered. And people will remember the success that you have. But more than any of that, they will remember how you made them feel. I want you to do something for me. I want you to visualize something. Maybe even close your eyes and visualize the best boss you've ever worked for. And it's possibly the person that you listed in that heroes box. But think about that. Visualize the best boss you ever worked for. What did they do? What did they say? How productive were you when you worked for them? How did it feel to work for them? Did you love your job? Did you have tons of energy and passion for what you were doing? I'm sure you could see their face and you know their name as you visualized this boss, this leader. Now what about that horrible boss? What about that really bad boss that you worked for? Wow. Unfortunately, I'm sure their name, and especially their face, popped into your visual image immediately. How did they make you feel? How productive were you when you were working for them? How much did you love your job? Now, I don't want you to completely forget about that boss, because I know that you learned from that bad boss as well. You learned things that you know you don't want to do as a leader. And those are tremendous lessons. So don't forget those, but make sure you put them in the right place of your leadership journey and your story. So by being thoughtful and intentional about your behaviors, you can define and create the legacy that you want to live and lead. Much of your story comes from the journey up to this point. Your successes up to this point, your value, your struggles up to this point. But now's the time that you can really think about how you want to move forward. So I want to take you through 4 questions, and these are on page 17 and 18 in your workbook. And you'll see those 4 questions. What do you want to be known for? So what are maybe the leadership qualities, behaviors, or talents or skills that you want to be known for? Think about those and write those down. Those could be anything specific to your role, your industry, or your leadership style. What do you want to be known for? What would you like your reputation or your brand to be? That's question number 2, the bottom of 17. What would you like your reputation or your brand to be? Talent scout, caring, helpful, always had my back. Whatever you want that brand to be. List that at the bottom of 17. And then what stories do you want people to tell about you? Now, we've worked on your story from your lens, from your perspective. Is this the same story that people would tell about you? Is it the story you want people to tell about you? Make sure they know the pieces that you want told, and that can include the good and the bad. But if you don't like that story that people would tell about you, now is the time to change it. Think about and write that story that you want others to tell about you. Tomorrow, next week, next month, in the many tomorrows to come. What's that story look like? And then 4, what have you created or what results have you delivered? What trophies are on your wall? So this can be much more specific about the success or the results you deliver. But what do you want your legacy to be in that aspect? So answer those 4 questions and start defining what you want your legacy to be. Now, as we wrap up, I've given you a lot to think about today. So now it's time for you to design the next phase of your leadership journey. It's time to be thoughtful and intentional about your goals in each phase of your journey. It's time for you to work on your story, work on what success looks like for you, your legacy, and a plan to close your gaps. It's time to work on that development plan. That plan to get you from where you are today to where you want to be based on your carefully designed journey. Start taking action to be that intentional leader by creating the legacy that you will live and lead. Now, this work is not easy. You can complete this workbook and you can read all the books you want to on leadership. But until you start taking action to close the gaps, the needle will not move. The past is the past. Now is the time to write your next chapter. Now you'll see on the last couple of pages of the workbook that I have a process that I work through all of this in much more detail with my clients. And this is just the beginning. This ripple framework is really the beginning of your journey. It's the reflect. All of this that we've just done is reflect. It's inventory yourself, your mission, your purpose. What results are you delivering? What gaps are there? What's your vision for your role, your results, your legacy? All of those things. Most of this work that we've talked about today is in the R, the reflect. The I is for insights. So take the time and energy to get insight from others. How do others see you? What is that perspective? You can get this through performance reviews, assessments, feedback, 360s, coaching. Find out what others believe you are doing. What's working, what's getting in your way of you being successful. Okay? And then you really go into planning your development. Practicing what you've learned with your new skills and behaviors, leading yourself and your team with these new skills that you have, and then excelling, improving your surroundings, taking your new habits, skills, and behaviors to the next level in your current position or in the next position. My ask for you today is to write your story. Define success for you. Define, live, and leave your leadership legacy. What's stopping you? Thank you for your time today. I will be live in the Day of Security booth on October 28th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific time. I would love for you to stop by, ask me questions, come on camera, let's have a chat about your story, about your success, and about your legacy. I am so happy that you have had the opportunity to experience the Day of Security, October 2021. And I look forward to connecting with you as we continue to grow women in security. I am also inviting experienced leaders to complete the survey that I have in the box down at the bottom, to click on that link and share your experiences with me. I'm working on a research paper, a white paper, that's really going to take the successes and the wins from experienced leaders in cyber and tech and be able to help other developing and emerging leaders that come after you be more successful and learn from your wonderful experiences. So help me by completing the survey down at the bottom and contributing to the wonderful research that is going to help successful leaders in cyber and tech be able to grow and develop in their career, to be able to have a seat at the table, and to truly create equality across the industry.